Hey there, monkeys. Grab that cup of coffee, kick back, and relax. We'll get started with a SITREP in just a minute. All right, hey, welcome, folks. Mil-Spec Optical here. It's going to be your SITREP. It is 4/25/2024, coming to you live here from the Monkey Lounge in the great state of Texas. And hey, before we get started, this video is sponsored by the Satellite Phone Store. You can jump over to sat123.com, sat123.com, or you can just go hover over this QR code right here beside me. And it's going to take you over to the Satellite Phone Store site, and they're my go-to when it comes to satellite phones and anything else in terms of comms or, just about anything you can imagine in terms of the solar stuff, the battery backup, power supplies. They've got just about everything you could possibly need from a comms perspective. And if you haven't done so, it's sat123.com. And this is the latest and greatest. Look, there's a reason why our senators and all of our congressmen are basically getting their hands on satellite phones because they are encrypted, and it prevents our own government from listening in on what they are up to. And it also is because, look, they know that if things go hot, that your standard mobile phone and the towers are probably not going to work, or they're going to be so jammed up that you can't communicate through them. And so having that satellite phone is key to your success and communicating with your family and loved ones, okay? And so currently right now, they've got the MR-SAT phone, 100 minutes or text, and then, of course, the Iridium 9555. I have both of these phones. They are both amazing in and of themselves. This one right here is probably the creme de la creme, and they have a deal going, 100-plus minutes or text. And that's for that one. You can double down, do the Noah's Ark approach, and get 2 of everything, or you can even go 3 of everything if you've got a larger family and you want to get some comms into their hands. But again, sat123.com. That's sat123.com, or you can give them a call at 941-841-0844. Tell them Monkey sent you. All right, hey, listen, let's jump over here to what is going on in the world in terms of sky glass. And as you can see, Middle East a little bit hopping at the moment. The interesting thing is you got the Brits, the U.S. in here, quite a few different flag carriers within the Middle East right now. It is kind of late in the evening, or starting to get late in the evening over there. This one is probably the most curious one out of all. That is an air refueler right on the the Iraq border and the Iranian border between the two. Sorry, Syria's over here. But that is pretty doggone close. That tells you there's some fighter activity probably flying along this area right here. Now, that is where we stand from that perspective. You still have a Q4. That is a Triton 19. That's a U.S. asset that looks to be high altitude and well, let's see. Yeah, it's just kind of over the Mediterranean near Cyprus. And then, of course, we got this low altitude one here that looks to be a Navy asset. I think that's probably a P-8 if I had to guess. These guys like to go incognito. That, too, is a U.S. asset. All right. And then low altitude down here looks like, well, that one looks to be headed into, well, Yeah, it's headed towards Lebanon. We'll see what happens here. All right, there's a Navy logistics bird. Some high altitude stuff. Those are going to be those intel balloons that are currently up. Let me go down here to the Caribbean because this is another spot. We've got several of these up. We'll talk about them more here in just a minute. I do see some activity with our spec ops going in and out of Guantanamo Bay. But let's just count the numbers. Tex 2's 100 of those up. EC-45 helos, that's a training asset for the most part. 49 of those up. T-38's 44 of those up. So you've got almost 200 training aircraft in the air right now. Those are, in essence, they've been pulled out. But we also have 3 E6s up. Okay, that's electronic suite. Remember, those are your TACAMOs. We'll look at those closer here in a minute. Also, air refueler is only 18. It's a little lower than we usually see from the air refueling world, but that is just the KC-135s. H-60s, 38. Again, ignore these down here in the Panhandle, but these up here on the eastern seaboard, that's a pretty active. See if anything else catches my eye in here. There's your banana copters. Only 6 of those up this morning, and so not too much going on there. Okay, I'm going to pull this aside. Let's get into our watch list and just take a look at what's been going on there. Now, just note, you've got a couple little assets down towards Southern California. That is your water police, all right? And then, of course, we've got that's SOAR. That's Cloud Seeding Operations over Salt Lake City. So heads up if you're in that area, maybe just for snow. Maybe they're using this opportunity to throw a little more snow down on the slopes. You got DOJ on the move, and then that right there is another intel bird. And then that is going to be your Director of Homeland Security, C-102, headed southbound out of the swamp. Another E6. Like I said, we've got 3 E6s currently up at the moment. Those are talking to your nukes. Right? And E2 down low altitude, E2 looks like it's doing some stuff off the eastern seaboard. And then, of course, there's one of your other E6s. R135 getting airborne. And this one right here, rounding the horn, that is your Spec Ops community headed into Guantanamo Bay. My guess is either some J6ers or they are apprehending some dudes that have come across the border. But that is another intel balloon, and there are 2 up in that area because I saw the other one yesterday and then it disappeared on me. But it's just a data point for you. They're watching that area very closely because the Chinese are down there. And then you got some G5s headed across the drink, look like some SPAR, some dignitaries coming back. And, of course, Russians. We've got some intel bird up there, Brio 66, I think that was. All right, that's your watch list. Now let's jump over here to the intel side of the house. Very strange. And the reason I say so strange is because they are concentrated on the East Coast only, okay? And let me back up for a second. Normally, we see a ton of intel aircraft within Texas, southern Tucson area of Arizona, kind of back and forth there. A lot of flights. I've got 0 in the last 3 days. Very uncommon. It's I don't know what's going on, but the fact that they are looking very closely at the northeast, given the boxes we have, in the region, it tells me they're very worried about something off the East Coast. So then look at this right here around Kaliningrad. We'll talk about the rationale behind that. I do believe we figured out what is going on, other than they are probably also looking at Belarus very closely because there's a lot of troop movement going on there, a lot of exercises with the Russians and the Belarusians. Is that even a word? But you can see, again, same spots they have always been. This right here tells me 100% right there, they are looking at Serbia. All right. They're very concerned about Serbia. And then, of course, kind of rounding the horn there over in Romania. Probably have some stuff happening there, too. And then low altitude stuff just coming into the Mediterranean, and then Israel is just all over the place. They're up into Syria. They're over into Jordan a little bit. They're just, up into Lebanon. Right. Okay. Now, I don't see anything else from an intel perspective. Let me just double check here. We get over to, we got a little bit down here in Southeast Asia. So in Manila, it looks like they've got some activity going on. And then, of course, over here into Singapore and, yeah, mainly just in Malaysia there. All right. Kuala Lumpur. All right, let's talk drones. They're moving assets. This is the only thing I can think of. Headed to Dayton, Ohio area. I read an article the other day that they were indeed operating out of Dayton now. So looks like they're taking them out of Southern Cal, moving them towards Dayton. And then it looks like a little bit of low altitude activity there. Of course, this is the drone stuff, right? And so you got both low and high altitude. Notice the high altitude headed towards Benghazi in that general area. That's because the Russians are there. The Russians are hot and heavy in Libya. And then our normal stuff out over the Black Sea, low altitude stuff over the Mediterranean, and then some stuff going on out of Qatar. Now, let me take us over here to Asia. And I'm looking at the drone activity off to the eastern side of Japan. Then we head down a little further south. I don't have anything for you. All right. Let's talk E6. Remember, we got 3 of them up right now. This is over the last 3 days. The activity, just notice, off the west coast of California, right? So they're talking to subs out there, more than likely, right? Up and down the western seaboard, to the north towards Canada, then down towards the Texas border, down towards the Arizona border, out over the Gulf of Mexico, and up on the East Coast. So pretty much coast to coast, very active. And like I said, that is your TACAMO, take charge, move out, talking to your nukes. R-135s. Now, this is interesting. Just notice the route that comes down over the Gulf of Mexico right here. All right. That tells me when you see, when I show you the AWACS here in a second, coupled by the E6, that they've got some serious stuff going on down there in the Gulf of Mexico. And then, of course, you see an asset that moved out to Hawaii. And then again, look at this, kind of all over the place. The Baltic Sea, kind of thick traffic over and around Kaliningrad, up into Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, as always. Same locations we see them from an R-135 perspective. But we're going to talk a little bit about some of the news going on there. And then, of course, when I show you the AWACS, this is the very unusual flight activity that catches my eye. So let's get on over here to the AWACS side and just take a look. Last 3 days, got a little blip coming off of Southern California. Look at this up and around the East Coast, right? Between New York, DC, Virginia. Very, very active and busy. In fact, I've never seen it like that in all my time of watching. That amount over 3 days is insane. But look at this thick layer of traffic headed out, headed over towards Eastern Europe. And you can just see, again, up towards Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and right up there on the border of Belarus. And then we could see a little bit of a movement there, but we'll get over here to Asia, and then you can see some stuff coming in and out of Japan, kind of out over that South China Sea, which is interesting, right? And then we drop down here to Australia, and again, this is AWACS, okay? And that just very busy and active, even for Australia from their standpoint, all right? Okay. Now let's talk C-17s, 217 flights over the last 3 days. Looks like we've got more activity headed into Hawaii. Some stuff looks to be headed out of Alaska towards Asia. And then just, pretty active and busy. I have no idea what this one is that shoots just way north and then back. It didn't, look at the altitude. It didn't descend at all. It just went out and back. So I'm almost wondering if they didn't just maybe do some airdrops there. All right. And then you can see, look how thick the stuff is going in and out of Ramstein into Germany, down towards the Middle East. See these broken traces right here? That's a lot of broken traces headed down what looks to be Egypt, which would probably be, makes kind of sense, putting in some support. But no, why break the traces unless you didn't want people seeing what you're really doing, right? That's kind of the crux to this. Look at this when you kick it off sideways, the amount of broken traces of flights that just terminated as they headed out over the Mediterranean towards that area of the world. Okay. And then just a couple things in and out of Bahrain, it looks like, Doha, and that area. And then, of course, look at the stuff coming out of the Philippines, headed down to Australia into New Zealand, right? Okay, so again, up here on the East Coast, we've been watching quite a bit of activity. I mean, it's seems to be a lot of E2s, a lot of E3 Sentries, a lot of things that would be looking at weapon systems, maybe, missiles, Club Ks, maybe the threat of some type of a nuke off our East Coast. All right. And again, these guys, there are two of these out here. The other one is just not showing. Pretty typical of the balloon world, so to speak. They typically are very high altitude. So this one is at 60,000, which is well above any commercial aviation traffic. And then these are just super high altitude. You're talking 80, 90,000 feet. So, all right, let's get over here to Flashbang's schedule. Looks like he is headed out of town yet again today. And then he will end up here at in New York at JFK. And then looks like he's headed to the Westchester County Airport. And he's on the campaign trail again. I guess they just don't have it, the heart to break it to the big guy. Or they broke it to him several times. He just doesn't remember that they have told him otherwise. So, okay. Check this out. Now, this becomes important because here he is. He's rubbing Americans' noses in the fact that he does nothing on the border crisis. He doesn't care about the border. Very, very obvious. But the key to all of this is that as he pushes $95 billion this aid package to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, we already know Ukraine's getting the lion's share of that package, and that it basically, in essence, Ukraine gets 60 billion, something like that. Israel's getting a little chunk, and then Taiwan's getting a chunk. The aid going to Israel more than likely is, I keep hitting that button, is just, it's going to be, most of it's going to be going to Gaza, not missile defense. There'll be a little small amount that goes to missile defense, but for the most part, a lot of that right there is going to be going to probably Gazans and Palestinians. All right. Okay, let's move on from this and start getting into this. FBI Director Chris Wray concerned about some kind of coordinated attack on the homeland. Hey, listen, the last time we really heard like all your agencies talking about this attack on the homeland, think back to 9/11, because there was all of this chatter and everybody in hindsight says, well, we knew it was coming. Well, they're telling us over and over again, I would not be surprised there is some type of coordinated attack before the election. All right. They keep talking about the fact that this ISIS-K is now the biggest terrorist threat in the world. And just kind of go back and remember that ISIS is a creation of our deep state and our agency boys. Okay, you can go look at the live leak videos from John McCain when his laptop was hacked and they pulled all the green room stuff out. You can look at all the assets that were just conveniently left behind for them. Very similar to what we did in Afghanistan. But it should not come to any surprise that these guys are up and running and well-funded, okay? So, yeah, anyway, let's move on. Okay, hang on to your wallets yet again. Listen, when you have out-of-control spending, they're going to be basically trying to get their pound of flesh from everyone, all right? And this is no exception. He's talking about doubling the capital gains tax. So that means anything that you invest in and you make profit on, you're gonna get dinged on it and pay more than your fair share. All right, and just shouldn't be surprised by all of this because they're out of control spending. Until we reel them in on their spending, they're going to be beating us up. That's why they weaponize the IRS. That's why they do what they do in terms of the threat letters and everything else. It's because their spending is out of control and they've got to try and figure out where they can get their money from. I also have a game theory on these flights in terms of the survey flights. They could very well be leveraging our assets to cover their deficit, okay, in terms of we know they have an excruciating amount of interest that is due on their debt. And, how do you back that? Well, you probably have to go out and go, this is all the stuff that we have that we can basically go and grab through eminent domain and validate the amount of money that we spend and how we can back our money, okay? All right. Now, this is interesting, and if you're over on Patreon, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on the under-the-radar aspect of this. But these are the threat boxes we talk about. These are the ones off the East Coast, off the West Coast. This continues. I do believe they're looking at ocean assets coming through here. We've seen R-135s come around and go up and down this peninsula. We've got them coming down over the Gulf of Mexico, and we see all kinds of AWACS activity up here in this general area. And so they are probably looking at, as Flashbang heads into Wall Street, et cetera, today, they were probably checking to see if there are any nukes in New York that, may be a threat. So pretty crazy world we're living in, right? And let me back it up just a little bit to see if there are any missile boxes or anything that catches my eye. Not seeing too much from that standpoint. Let me go down here. I want to see if we still have any more of the, these are all the exercises going on down here in Southeast Asia. And then this around the Philippines, we know we've got a big, large exercise going on there right now. All right, here's your threat map for today. Hey, that's weird. United States numero uno yet again. As you can see, the attacks coming in. Yeah, we're getting pretty lit up today. So, all right, let's move on. Now, this part is interesting because Ramstein, as I just kind of go in, I'm not going to look at the daily stuff coming in on the board as we speak. Rather, instead, I'm going to take a look at what has been coming in over the last couple weeks. And it's interesting because you go through, you got C-130s. That's a dignitary coming out of Stuttgart. All right, this is, let me make sure I'm on notes. This is the departure board. So, okay, so this is one headed to Stuttgart. All right, SPAR 71, blue and white dignitary. Notice what's leaving here. We've got a lot of stuff going. And the reason we're looking at Ramstein and where they're going to is because we know that that is a staging area. So everything kind of comes into Ramstein, and then goes outbound from there. So what we're looking for, just kind of where in a general fashion things are going and how big are these aircraft to tell us whether or not they're troops or whether or not they are equipment. So you can see 747 headed into Kuwait. We've got a smaller aircraft that looks to be headed to the Middle East, a 777 coming outbound to there, headed to Cherry Point. Very likely that is troops because it's a camber flight. Secondary camber flight headed to Baltimore. And then one more right below it. That one's headed to Doha, 747. And we go down a little further. Just notice the large equipment in and out of this location. All right. Kuwait again. And a lot of 767s. Those are going to be troops. All right. So there's a lot of troop movement headed over to the Middle East and to Europe. All right. A continued troop movement. All right. This is going to be the Brits. Interesting, the amount of activity in and out of Cherry Point right now. Notice that one's coming out of Cherry Point, headed to Terceira Island. That's a fueling stop. And the rest of these look to be, wow, look how stacked up they are here in the U.S. Got two rolling out of there, and then one looks to be headed down into Europe. All right, that's the Brits. We go over here to U.S. Transportation Command. I see it here, and it got nothing on the board, but that one looks to be in the Middle East, just getting, well, it's level at 32,900, and it's coming out of Shannon, Ireland. Looks to, let me zoom in a little bit and see if I've got, yeah, it looks to be headed to Kuwait, if I had to guess, all right? Okay, and then we go down a little further. This is RZE Poland. I don't have anything on the board that I actually got nothing on the board, but we do have a lot of activity going on there. As I mentioned, we've had a lot of drone strikes in the interior of Russia that are attacking the oil and gas areas. So check this out. This couple little data points for you on that region, especially when it comes to Russia. But look at this. Russia vetoes the U.S. authored UN resolution banning nuclear weapons in space. Very, very interesting data point for you, that the fact that the United States brought that forward. And I think they're worried about something, probably EMPs or any kind of thing like that. But this here, check this little piece out. Russia's been developing a nuclear-powered device to blind, jam, or fry electronics inside satellites that an explosive nuclear warhead, inside satellites, then an explosive nuclear warhead to shoot them down. So just kind of an interesting thing. I mean, we do know we had the Reagan Star Wars stuff going on. We know that pretty much never stopped. Thus, we have Space Force today. But Russia also has the same thing. And remember that they just recently came out, the U.S. did, and that was a major security concern for them. Well, it looks like they took it forward to the UN, and Russia vetoed it. So it's just kind of funny, I guess. Poetic justice, so to speak. Okay. Now, look at this. Reuters basically is estimating that the Russian oil and gas revenue is going to double for the month of April. Yeah, this is after we have done everything we can to basically sanction Russia and their oil and anything else, their banks and any other revenue that these oligarchs have. But interesting piece to this is just that there is never, ever any mention of Uranium One deal. Now, keep in mind that's still active. I don't know that that's ever been terminated. And there's no one from our State Department or anyone else that has ever gone to jail for the actions in which they pumped money into foreign governments that basically were turned around and basically put into the Clinton Foundation or the Clinton Global Initiative. And so, but they never mentioned that. And I think the reason they're not hitting the Uranium One aspect is because, and that's right here on U.S. soil, folks, by the way, it's because they got their hands in the cookie jar. And they know that if they ding them on that they're going to ding themselves on that. So therefore, they just turn a blind eye. They don't talk about the baby or the the elephant in the room, so to speak, right? Okay. So anyway, just a data point for you. And then this piece right here, U.S. secretly armed Ukraine with long-range ATACMS last month. And this is a game changer. And the fact that we pushed in last month, part of a $300 million arms package went into Ukraine. It's fired from the HIMARS. It's a long range up to 190 miles away they can hit. And by the way, they just used it. That's how they found out it was there. And then the U.S. confessed it was in there. It makes you wonder what else is there that they're not telling us about. But this is yet another data point for you because we continue to provoke the Russians. We're popping drones and hitting now their oil stuff. You go back and you look at the high oil output, and now all of a sudden we are going after that stuff. So eyes on it. It is just a matter of time, folks. This stuff is going to go hot eventually. There's nothing other than maybe Trump coming into office that would stop this. All right. And so that's why I think between now and the election, we have a high probability of the world being in World War III. Okay. Now look at this. We talked about those flights. Remember I said, man, they are looking very closely at Kaliningrad. I mean, very closely. They keep going around and around and around. Typically, that's consistent with some type of a headline that says nukes on the move or Russian, troop movements or Belarusian troop movements, etc. But check this out. Russia has a top secret EW weapon that is being blamed for all this flight jamming that is happening on the NATO eastern flank. They believe this thing is actually operating out of Kaliningrad. It's called the Tobol system. And they've actually had almost 4,000 flights reporting that they have been jammed as they've been flying around that area. So I think that's a shot of this bad mamma jammer. Get it? Mamma jammer? All right, let's move on. Here we go. Omni. So it looks like Omni's coming back out of Japan, headed to Seattle. And then we've got one looks to be getting airborne there. It looks like actually may just be doing some touch and goes out of the airport, back to the airport. All right. Moving on. National Cargo, again, these are the ones that they have a big military contract as well. Western Global seems to be on the back seat right now working other contracts. So it looks like National Cargo has picked up that slack. But these guys, you've got them 3 flights up. 2 of them are 747s. 1 out of Ogden, Utah, headed to Anchorage. That is probably carrying F-35 supplies because we know up there in Anchorage we've got a squadron of F-35s, maybe 2, maybe more. I don't know. But that's probably why, okay? Landing gear, tires, etc. That's probably what you have there, flyaway kits. And then, of course, right here, Chicago to Seoul, Korea. All right, that's probably going over to buy 155 millimeter artillery. All right, listen, folks, that is going to do it for our SITREP today. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. If you are in the live chat over here on Rumble with us for the Patreon and the member community, don't go away. We got our Q&A starting here in just a minute. For everybody else, we will see you next week in our next SITREP. That's it. Keep that powder dry. Stay frosty. We'll talk soon. God bless. Monkey out. Thanks for watching, folks. You can check out the latest gear and products by selecting the QR code on your screen now or go to monkeyworksus.com.